Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, your chance to win $2,000 cash, plus Antifa activists stopped me from getting past hors d'oeuvres and a scotch last night. But before we get to any of that, after our massive outage this morning, we are now back online. But all of us here at KVI would like to take this opportunity to formally apologize for the outage that happened. A lot of you had questions about what caused it. Was it Antifa taking down our transmitter? Was it the homeless stealing the copper wires from the power? No, my friends. It was something much, much worse. Give a listen.
This morning on Talk Radio 570 KVI, something very unfortunate happened. And we know it was something you don't expect from us. This is a public apology after KVI lost transmission capability, taking us off the air. There is an individual to blame, a rogue squirrel on Vashon Island. This squirrel's extremist attempt to cross wires at a transformer eliminated power to our transmitter. That squirrel is no longer alive after suffering a fatal shock. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, a squirrel. I kid you not. A squirrel got himself or herself, we don't judge their gender, we haven't checked yet, got themselves electrocuted by going into our wires, and that is what took down the KVI transmitter. I think it was an Antifa squirrel. That's probably what it was. Would be my guess. But actually, speaking of Antifa, let me tell you, if you've been a long-time listener of the Ari Hoffman Show, you know how mad I get when I have a plan to go get some kosher food here in Seattle and a little alcoholic beverage, because I don't have a lot of options here. I really don't. So when there's a big Jewish event, I get really excited because I get my kosher food, I get my glass of wine, or I get my old-fashioned or whatever it is, and I am very, very happy. Last night, there was an event for an organization called Stand With Us. They combat anti-Semitism. They do some pro-Israel work. I was there as an attendee. My wife was with me. My daughter was with me as we were going to this event. Now, I knew there were going to be problems before this event even began. Last week, Hannah Saunders, who runs an Antifa news site, she's basically a glorified Antifa influencer, was asking people to register for this event, to pay the $154 or whatever it costs for this fundraiser to go, so they can get the address, which was not public. Now, I know that one of the people who tried to do this, his name was Philip Zurcher. He stupidly posted on social media in response to this, I just bought tickets, and I got it. I'll send you the info as soon as I get it. And then he was all mad when the ticket was refunded. And he said, they're not giving me the info. I don't know what happened. How could they have figured out it was me? Well, you moron, you posted a public comment on a public Instagram post, and we all saw it. But somebody else was more clever. Oh, by the way, Philip Zurcher works for the Federal Aviation Administration. You know, last time I checked, we have a bad track record of terrorist types and airplanes. Maybe they should do something about that. So what happens is somebody else bought a ticket, gave Hannah Saunders the address, and she blasted it into the internets. Now, mind you, this organization has their event at the same location every year. Shouldn't have been hard to find it. It's at Town Hall in Seattle, but they knew there would be a security risk. So we knew activists were coming. Anywho, I'm not running this event. I'm not in charge of this event. I'm just looking forward to my food and wine or scotch or whatever it is they got at this place, and I'm really looking forward to it. I get in the car with my wife and my daughter, and we start driving to the event. While we're driving, I get a text from a friend of mine who's at the event. And she says, Ari, don't go to valet parking. Now, because this event is in downtown Seattle, I usually do go to valet parking because I don't want to drive around looking for the parking. And I don't want to risk that I have Seattle snow on the ground when I come back to my car. But what happens is she says, don't go to valet parking. And I said, why not? And she says, the valets have run off and quit for the night because there are so many activists who are here. They're afraid of getting back to the venue. They're afraid of what's going to happen to the cars. And they're not working right now. And I said, how many activists are there? And she says, a lot. And I said, well, at least now we know what we're driving into. So we show up at the venue. Town Hall Seattle is not Seattle's Town Hall. It's a place that's called Town Hall. I think it used to be Town Hall of some kind, like a church or something like that. It's a big, beautiful, old school building here in Seattle. A lot of people have venues. A lot of people have events at this venue. So as I'm pulling up to this thing, you can already hear the chanting. And you can already hear the shouting from the Antifa, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, communist activists. And before you guys start saying, oh, they're just pro-Palestinian, they're not. Some of them are wearing Hamas T-shirts. Some of them are wearing Hezbollah T-shirts, waving communist flags. They made no secret about who they are. In fact, multiple communist groups are mad that I gave credit to certain activists for organizing this thing and not them. So, when the Seattle Times and Cairo 7 says they're just pro-Palestinian activists, they are lying. That is bad news coverage, and you should ask why they did that intentionally when the activists themselves say we are Antifa, say we support Hamas, say we support Hezbollah, say we are socialists, we are Marxists, we are communists. They all said it. They all broadcast it. They all have the flyers, the banners, the T-shirts, the everything. What I couldn't figure out was why they were all so close to the building. I didn't see Seattle Police Department anywhere. I don't know if that's the fault of the organizers. I don't know if that's the fault of calling Seattle Police and asking for help. When I do an event, my security sets up a huge cordon around the building so nobody can get into that sucker. And then maybe if Seattle Police shows up, then that's an added bonus. But these lunatics were right there, right at the valet station, right next to the building, front and back, trying to block the entrances. So now I got to find parking. So I find a Seattle parking lot not too far away. A bunch of other people are there too, and we walk in a group over towards the building. As we're walking in a group over towards the building, you hear the chanting, you hear the yelling, you hear the screaming. People are throwing themselves on the street which is now covered in fake blood. They're threatening us. They're throwing slurs at us. In fact, while we were driving, one of them pointed at us and made the cutting image across his throat as we were going to my wife. This is what it was like when people were walking to this thing.
Seattle! Genocide supporters! Seattle! Genocide supporters! Genocide supporters!
Yeah, and they were physically assaulting people. They were physically blocking people. They were throwing things at people, paint at people, you name it. They were doing all that stuff. What happened when I showed up to this fun? Because they recognized me right away. Oh, that's when the Seattle police showed up. Hang on, we'll come back to that in a second. But they clearly knew it was me. They were yelling and screaming and very upset that I was even there. So what happens? We go into the building and people are shaken up. You know, I'm used to this kind of stuff, but other people don't deal with this all the time. They're shaken up and they're standing around inside. Now, as I'm inside discussing with people what's happening, who comes walking over to me? Reuven Carlisle. I kid you not. Former state senator Reuven Carlisle. If you don't know who he is, a lot of people who listen to the show for a long time are laughing. They're laughing right now. And why are they laughing right now? Because the last time somebody got between me, the kosher food, and the alcohol, it was Reuven Carlisle, who ambushed me the second I walked into this event. Actually, it wasn't this event. It was a different event a couple of years ago. So what happens? I come in, and there's former Senator Reuven Carlisle. What's his big claim to fame? Reuven Carlisle? I will tell you his big claim to fame. He was the sponsor of the Climate Commitment Act. And then after the Climate Commitment Act, he quit the Washington State Senate and went off to fund his own company that makes money telling people how to get grants from the Climate Commitment Act, the giant slush fund, the thing that has made your gas prices skyrocket. When you ask why our gas is so much higher than Idaho, and it all comes from the exact same place, you can blame Reuben Carlisle, Jay Inslee, Joe Wynn, Bob Ferguson, and a couple of others. So I am in no mood to talk to this guy. Really no mood. I just went through the Antifa cordon that I'm trying to get through here, right? The gauntlet. And I'm inside, and all I want is my food and some wine or a scotch or whatever, right? I'm also dieting, by the way. I've lost 6 pounds in a week. Thank you very much. This was the thing I was looking forward to because I know the caterer. I'm very excited about this. Reuben Carlisle comes walking over. You know, Ari, you're saying some not nice things about me on the radio. You're really saying some inaccurate things. I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk right now. I just don't. He's like, no, the things you're saying, they're not true. I said, you owe everybody in this room gas money. In fact, you owe everybody in this state gas money. So how about you start by buying me a drink at the bar? And he's like, that's not true. That's not what's going on. You say a lot of bad things about me. And then he put me over the edge. He said, Ari, I'm a Jew, and you're saying a lot of lashon hara about me. Lashon hara is a term we have in Judaism, which means you're not supposed to speak badly of another Jew. You're not supposed to say bad things about another Jew. And I said to him, you have to be a practicing Jew to start quoting any kind of scripture at me or anything else. I don't even see a yarmulke on your head. So don't start lecturing me on Judaism when you don't live a Jewish lifestyle. And I just stormed away because I was so mad at this point. And I'm going and looking for my hors d'oeuvres. So I'm looking for the hors d'oeuvres, and I'm looking for the food, and I'm looking for the wine. And I think I got a glass of wine at this point. I think I have a glass of wine. But then I got to put it down because I see 30 police officers rushing into the building. And I'm like, oh, it's going down. It's going down. Let me grab my camera. I got it. It's going down. So what happens? I grab my cell phone, and I'm in my suit. I put my glass of wine down. I don't get my hors d'oeuvres. And the Seattle Police Department is massing near the main entrance of Town Hall. So for those of you who have been there before, they're all massing by those 3 or 4 double doors in the front, massing there. And I'm like, this is exciting. It's going down. And what happens? The Seattle Police Department go out through those doors in the gear that they have. They go out through those doors and start ordering the crowd to move back. Start ordering them move back, because they're blocking the entrances. People can't get in. They're blocking the exits. People can't get out. Personally, for me, I think that's imprisonment. I think that's what it is. I think it's false imprisonment. Anywho, so what happens? I get video of this. It only took a couple minutes before people start shoving the officers. And like I said, some of the attendees at this event were assaulted as well. So it only takes a couple minutes until they start assaulting the officers. And then the Seattle Police Department did their thing. Oh, bam, 1, 2, 3. Guys taken to the ground. It was awesome to watch. Can't play the clips because there's just too much cussing in them, and they don't transfer to radio that well. But they are just taken down. And immediately the activists are yelling all the George Floyd stuff, like, you've got a knee on his neck. No, he didn't. From any camera angle, you could see it. They start lying, you pigs, you this, you whatever, blah, 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 blah. Start getting all mad about this. And I'm getting video of all of it. You can see it over on my socials, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on Twitter. It is all up there right now. You can check it out. So this happens, and then the event starts going. So I talk to police. I give a statement to police. Some other people give statements to police who've been assaulted, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fine. It's all going fine. But these lunatics do not stop. So now the event is going off without a hitch. And what they're mad about is that one of the speakers at the event is Noah Kochba. Noah Kochba was a former IDF medic, but she was also Miss Israel, and they're really mad. How dare Miss Israel be talking? I think it's probably because she's more attractive than any of these little piggies that work for Antifa. They're probably really, really mad about that. Ladies, I will tell... Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't assume your gender, whoever you are at Antifa. I will tell you something. The septum nose ring just makes you look like a little piggy. It is not something that anybody finds attractive at all. You do not look edgy, and when you all do the same thing, you do not stand out as an individual. Sorry, I know you're not supposed to comment on a woman's looks, but you all look ridiculous. I just see that thing and I go, little piggy. That's just what I think. Oink, oink. So what happens? Now, you've got them all yelling and screaming outside, and they're all mad because the cops have made 3 arrests. This is all happening while the speeches are going on upstairs, the fundraising, the talking about combating anti-Semitism, while this is happening outside in Seattle. Absolutely bonkers. So, now I've got a minute. I find my glass of wine, can't find it, go back to the bar, get my glass of wine, talk to the police a little bit. Some more activism starts. Then I'm like, I wonder what's going on outside because they're getting pretty loud, and I wonder if they're disrupting the event. They didn't. But anywho, here's what was going on outside when they saw me.
Ari Hoffman, you're a Zionist. You're a propagandist for genocide. I shame you. I denounce you. You are a Nazi. You are a terrorist. This is America.
Charming people, aren't they? They're lots of fun. That's my personal fan club that shows up at these events. Oh, by the way, that dude, all his information is over on my social medias. He runs a martial arts studio. Lebanese citizen who immigrated to the United States. Hey, ICE, you're going to be getting some emails from me tonight. We're going to check his immigration status. We're going to see who this fella is. Now, of course, there was this one funny moment. You know who else was out there? Bennett the protester. Bennett the protester was out there, and he's all mad that we still don't take his calls on the show after he got banned for, doxing my synagogue and spreading all this nonsense about me online. So Bennett's out there. If you couldn't hear that, it was Ari, answer your phone. He's mad we don't pick up the phone for him at KVI. And then you hear somebody go, oh, Bennett, because he's just known at this point. So then you got an issue. The building is surrounded by Antifa, by the communists, by the Marxists, by the socialists, by the pro-Hamas types. The building's surrounded. How do you get everybody out? So while the police are coming up with the strategy, the event's still going on, but then it's time for everybody to leave. So once again, the Seattle police go out those same doors and push this crowd, which has now grown to about 75 activists, back and open up an area to go through. Now, people had told me already that their cars had been damaged. People tried to rip the mirrors off their cars. And I told them, file the reports with the police. And by the way, anybody who was at this event last night who had any physical contact whatsoever, or anybody assault you, hit you with anything, throw anything at you or your vehicle, file a report with the Seattle Police Department right now. So what happens? As everybody's trying to leave, the Antifa types and everybody are trying to stop them. So the police are able to push them back. You're talking about like 50 police officers. Go out the front doors and push them back around the corner. So now everybody can leave, but there's only one way out. So a few scattered Hamas-niks, Antifa-niks, and crew go over to try and harass everybody who's walking by. One of the people they harass is me, my wife, and my daughter. I hope I find video of this altercation before, because though I've had to stand up for my wife a couple times before, it was nothing like this, and I used some pretty colorful language. During this whole thing. I really did, because I was all jacked up, not just from the adrenaline of seeing what was going on outside, but when I finally had a chance to eat inside, you know who found me again? Ruben Carlisle finds me again. And he says, Ari, we can't be fighting with all this going on. And I go, those are your supporters out there. Those are the ones you passed the Climate Commitment Act for. They're anti-Semitic, and you and your other cowardly Democrat friends cave to every single Hamas-supporting, Hamas-loving member of your party. And I use some other colorful language with him, until the point that he looked like he was going to cry, because he knows it's true. You can't keep throwing the Jewish thing at me when you do absolutely nothing to show you're a practicing Jew, absolutely nothing to defend your Jewish co-religionists, and absolutely nothing to defend anybody here in Washington State against terrorists. And in fact, you take their side in everything. Ruben Carlisle, you coward. He finally caved on that. In the end, didn't get my past hors d'oeuvres. In the end, I think I had a glass of wine maybe. But in the end of the day, a whole bunch of these activists targeted an event which was talking about combating anti-Semitism. You want to tell me again how anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism? Because that's exactly what I saw. They were wishing us death, calling for death about everything. And the Seattle Times did a piss-poor job covering this. The Seattle Times basically made it seem like, oh, well, everybody just got into scuffles, didn't give you any of the details I just gave you, didn't talk to anybody at the event. And then Cairo 7 picks up their terrible story and makes it seem like we were fighting with them. This is lousy journalism at its finest. At its finest here in Seattle. Cancel your subscriptions. Just cancel your subscriptions, because that's how awful Seattle Times reporting was on all of this. On all of it. Here's something else. King County prosecutors announced today that the 3 people who were arrested, 2 of them, were released already. Released because apparently they don't have enough evidence to hold them. So despite the fact of all the video that was sent to the police department, despite the fact that you have the body camera footage from the Seattle Police Department, despite all the statements and police reports that I know were filed, King County prosecutor says they don't have enough to hold him? So either that's the Seattle Police Department not sending the information over the King County prosecutors, or once again, this is the King County prosecutors refusing to prosecute. I don't know which one it is. I want to thank the brave men and women of the Seattle Police Department who put themselves in harm's way to protect so many of us last night, truly from the bottom of my heart. But the fact that the prosecutors are claiming they don't have what they need, oh, you bet I'm going to be digging into that, because that is inexcusable. Is that on the police, or is that on the prosecutors? Because let's remember, these are the same prosecutors that claim they didn't have enough evidence to charge the people that caused over $1 million worth of damage to the University of Washington brand new engineering building. I'm sensing a pattern here. I'm sensing a pattern of people not getting charged for crimes that they commit. Hey, where was Katie Wilson's statement on a group of Jews being hindered from getting into a fundraiser last night? Where was Bob Ferguson's statement? Where was Gurmay Zahalai's statement? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Because those are their voters. Those are their activists who are outside assaulting people, assaulting police officers, trying to stop Jews from going into an event here in oh-so-progressive Seattle. That's who they represent. They do not represent you. And it's infuriating to me that I know it's never going to change as long as these people are in office. It never, ever will. In fact, they're only doubling down on crazy, because now Katie Wilson has announced that they're shutting down the crime prevention cameras on the eve of the World Cup. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Lot of great text from you guys. This one might be my favorite of the day, talking about the squirrel who took out our transmitter today. This one's from Matt. Globalize the squirrel tifada. I like that one. Matt wins text of the day. That's good. This one here from Matthew in Auburn. If a squirrel is capable of taking out our radio transmissions, I'm very, very worried about our grid system. Yeah, tell me about it. R.I.P. Squirrel. You guys are funny. You guys are very, very funny. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari, we had that happen when I lived in Kent. We had a squirrel take out the block, and power was down for, it was a few hours. There was not much left of that squirrel. But, hey, I'm jealous. Some guys have all the fun. You know, you at that event, oh, my gosh. You know,
you and I have very different definitions of fun, sir. I will tell you this, Ted, is like some of the people who are there. Look, I got a lot of friends at this event, okay? There's not that many Jews in this world, and even less in Seattle, so there's a lot of people I know there, and a lot of non-Jews I know there too. But also what's funny is they go, you live for this, don't you? Because I'm all geared up like, yeah, the cops are going. Let's go. I'm all excited. I'm all jumping around. So there's a great line in Lethal Weapon 4. Lethal Weapon 4. Okay, so after the shootout with the Chinese smugglers at the beginning of the movie, and they were on a fishing trip, remember? Him and Murtaugh and Joe Pesci, they're all on a fishing trip, right? So they come back, and he's with his wife, Renee Russo, or not wife yet, Renee Russo, and they're walking along the beach. And when he's telling her the story of what happened, she goes, does trouble always know where to find, does trouble just seem to find you? And he goes, no, it seems to know where I am most of the time. That's what my life is like now. That's kind of what it's like. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, something like this happens, Ted.
Oh, my gosh. I haven't been in a fight since 8th grade, but, you know, put me in a situation like that, I might pop somebody. I don't know.
I got to tell you, it's probably right. It's probably a good thing I didn't have my gun on me, because you go after my wife and daughter, and there's going to be a thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's what they want us to do, you know?
Yeah.
And oh, my gosh. But anyway, I was just going to say, some guys, they have all the fun.
Yeah. Like I said, different definitions of fun. Very, very different. And here's the other thing. It's like when I go into these crowds and I go look at the stuff at riots, I'm prepared for what might happen to me, which is why I don't do it as much as I used to anymore. But when you now have your wife and your daughter to think about, now you're in a different situation. So I took Krav Maga for years. That was something I did. You know, I take the gun training, and I don't have my gun on me. These are a few things, but they always tell you, you don't know how you will react in a certain situation. You just don't know. Yeah. And I'm really glad to know that that's the way I reacted in this situation. So I'm actually kind of happy about that. Ted, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up is guess who's coming to Red Square tomorrow?
Who's that?
Noah Kukva, 11 o'clock in the morning.
I hope they have better security tomorrow than they had at the event last night.
Well, I'm going, and you're welcome to join me, and I'm bringing flowers for Noah, and then I'm going to chair a new one into the world-famous Seattle City Clown Show at 2 o'clock, and then I'm going to get on the train home.
What are they talking about at the Clownsel tomorrow?
I'm going to chew them out for not providing ample security and not prosecuting anti-Semitic terrorists. And then we've got a mayor. Did you know that I reached out to Katie Wilson asking her to condemn anti-Semitism last year? And she won't do it. Wait a second, Joe, I got a better favor for you, okay? They can't prosecute anybody, okay? Instead, ask them where all their statements were. Ask them why we didn't see a single statement from any of them on what happened last night. Because at the minimum, they can do that. Ask them why they didn't say anything about hate crimes. Ask them that instead of prosecution, because they can't prosecute anybody. Joe, as always, appreciate your support. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You know what these fools are doing now? You know their new big, brilliant plan? They want to turn off all the security cameras for the World Cup. Now, I was at a different event on Saturday night where I was speaking with the Family Policy Institute here in Washington. It was a lovely event. No Antifa at that one. And while we're at this event, a guy I haven't seen in years comes up to me. So his name is Tim. Tim's from the Chinatown
community. He actually moved out to Bellevue. And Tim was one of the big supporters when I ran for office from the Chinatown community. He was one of my liaisons. We used to talk about security, safety all the time because of how dangerous Chinatown was getting in 2018, 2019. Things have not improved. And Tim told me that they actually raised several $100,000 to put a couple of security cameras in at Chinatown. And now the mayor is ordering them to turn them off. So the community put in the money for these things, and now they're being ordered to turn them off on the eve of the World Cup. You might as well put out a sign and say, terrorists, welcome. We won't prosecute you. We won't do anything to you. We won't even watch what's happening. And forget the terrorism for a second. Forget the violence. Forget that Iran's coming and Egypt's coming. Forget all of that. You know what human trafficking always accompanies these big sporting events like the Super Bowl, like the World Series, like the World Cup? You guys say believe all women. You say get women out of these trafficking environments. And yet here, you're taking away one of the number one tools to stop them. Are you out of your minds? Completely lost it. Absolutely lost it. But you know who's savvy enough to avoid prosecution is Ilhan Omar. That's right. Everybody's favorite representative from Somalia has adjusted her taxes so that now she's not a millionaire anymore. Wonder what she's hiding. We'll give you all these spicy details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. All right, Matt Gilbert, you might have some competition for text of the day today. Do you remember the last time we got taken out? It was by a massive hack by the Russians. So from the 360, they're talking about what took us out today after hearing that it was a squirrel. And they wrote, it was probably conspiracy from Musk and Squirrel. That's my favorite. Oh, I love that one. I used to love that stupid show. I know it had been in reruns for like 30 years by the time I watched it. I even liked that stupid movie. The stupid live-action Bullwinkle movie was shockingly good because it was just as dumb as the cartoon. It was just as stupid. I actually really, really like that stupid movie. Man, unbelievable the stuff that we put up with around here. Squirrels taking out equipment, Antifa at every turn. And then there's Ilhan Omar. So, according to Fox News, Ilhan Omar is now saying she's not a millionaire and blamed a major accounting error after a congressional financial disclosure listed her assets as high as $30 million. An amended filing reviewed by the Wall Street Journal shows Omar and her husband's assets are now between $18,000 and $95,000. A sharp drop from an earlier disclosure that estimated their holdings between $6 million and $30 million. Time out. If you said to me, they're now somewhere between $60,000 and $300,000, I'd say, okay, you put a decimal point in the wrong place. You put a comma in the wrong place. Too many zeros, not enough zeros. But you go from 6 to 30 million to 18 to 95,000. That's a hell of an accounting mistake, especially because it puts you in different tax brackets. Why would you file a return which puts you in the top upper crust of those who make money in this country as opposed to the bottom level? Why would you do that? Why would you put it on financial? Okay, let me tell you something. Anybody who's only got between $18,000 and $95,000 in holdings knows they only have between $18,000 and $95,000 in holdings. Anybody who has between $6 million and $30 million knows they have that. So, no problem. Ilhan Omar, give us the announcement that you fired your accountant. What's the accountant's name? Who is the accountant? Who prepares your taxes? Who did this? I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. Her spokesperson, Jacqueline Rogers, says the amended disclosure confirms what we've said all along. The Congresswoman is not a millionaire, really. Where's the House Ethics Committee? The revised disclosure came after the Office of Congressional Conduct requested additional information earlier this year. Oh, I see. Right after they ask for your records because they see you're making millions of dollars on a member of Congress's salary, on the fact that you have all these millionaire donors who are now behind bars for all these scandals involving the Somalian community. They were your donors. You had events at their venues, and you were the one who passed the bill that allowed them to commit the fraud. And then you were too dumb to hide it, so you get called out for it? Quote, as the busiest of people, it is very common for members and their spouses to rely on learned professionals like accountants to make calculations and determinations that appear on public filings. While the error is, of course, unfortunate, there is nothing untoward and nothing illegal has occurred. As somebody who has run for office before and knows about these filings, let me tell you something. I'm not the best at math. I'm not. So you know what I did when I ran for office? I had an accountant guy. And I went over every line of what that dude sent me because I didn't want anybody calling me out for anything or any problems or getting fined for anything. You review these things. You look at these things. And members of Congress being busy, you guys were just on recess for weeks. And this thing was filed months ago after another recess. Plus, let's not forget, they all leave town on Thursdays so they can be home for the weekend because they're oh so busy, our members of Congress. The amended filing shows Omar reported between $102,000 and $1 million in income in 2024 from assets she and her husband own. According to the journal documentation attached to the attorney's letter, showed $213,000 in distributions to her husband. Wait, is this her brother? Husband, brother? I get all the relationships confused. From his venture capital management firm and $3,000 from a winery. Whoa. Aren't they Muslim? Aren't they Muslim? How much alcohol you guys consuming or invested in as Muslims? I'm a little confused. Do you believe a word of her BS story? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, a field trip for a school in California decided to separate kids by race. Well, they have different kinds of water fountains around there. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Okay, you guys are on fire on the text line today. With regards to Ilhan Omar, somebody said Ilhan Omar is using the quality leering tax services. Somebody else wrote, wait, do you take a double deduction for her brother or husband? Is it a dual dependent? Is that... This one here, she found out a way to write off her daycare kickbacks. Oh, you guys are killing me. You guys are absolutely killing me. That's great. You guys are funny. Ilhan Omar, which husband? The brother husband? Is that the one you're You guys are terrible. You guys are very funny, though. You know who's actually terrible? Got this exclusive story here from the Daily Caller. A California school district recently organized a field trip that excluded white students and maintained several other race-based policies. Albany Unified School District hosted the trip to Virginia for young men and women of color to visit historically black colleges and universities and discuss issues such as social justice, according to documents obtained by parental rights group Defending Education and shared exclusively with the Daily Caller News Foundation. The trip was approved by the Board of Education and cost the district $42,845. They say here that the unique mentoring program encourages Albany High School, young men and women of color, to develop social, personal, and academic success skills. Students gather in a safe, supportive, and empowering environment to voice their needs and challenges. The students engage in enriching discussions on social justice, education, leadership, mental well-being, and self-awareness. This mentorship program is transforming the lives of young men and women of color to make a significant global impact on society. Along with the college tours, students visited the Virginia Museum of History and Culture, the Virginia Civil Rights Memorial, and the Black Heritage Trail. The district maintains several other programs geared specifically towards non-white students and staff. Wait, hang on. Their local control and accountability plan names young men of color and young women of color programs that aim to provide social, emotional supports to most underserved students. The programs are part of a $1.2 million social, emotional, mental health support effort. The same plan details the district's intention to provide staff with professional development, programs centered on culturally responsive, anti-racist pedagogy. These teaching practices are necessary to support student groups who are persistently and historically underserved. Another document includes the goal of recruiting and retaining a diverse, high-quality staff. So what you're telling me is not only is DEI in full swing here, but also so is affirmative action completely. The superintendent report details plans to strengthen inclusive hiring, expand equitable recruitment pipelines, implement affinity-based supports. The report mentioned a Black Teacher Project to help in these race-based hiring and retention efforts, and suggested the district would track staff demographics as an indicator of success. The district website also reveals a response plan for immigration and customs enforcement activity on campus, which instructs staff not to provide any information. Because the Albany, California, Unified School District serves a diverse and vibrant community of students and families, many of whom have deep ties to immigration experiences. While we cannot control federal actions, Albany Unified is steadfast in its commitment to being a safe haven for all students. You know what I think is actually going on here? And some of you are going to get mad at me about this. I actually kind of blame the Trump administration for this. And you're going to say, wait, what? Ari, how are you doing that? You remember when the second Trump administration first came into power? And what happened was they made a big splash. We're going to target this school district. We're going to go after this school district. We're going to go after that school district. Many of them haven't heard anything since. So sure, you could beat up on Harvard. Sure, you could beat up on Columbia. But a lot of other schools, a lot of other districts haven't heard anything aside from just being put on a list or just getting one random letter and no follow-up whatsoever. If you make these big threats, if you make these big promises and you don't deliver on them, then people get emboldened because they say, there's no way they could check all of us. And all we got to do is wait it out till the next election. All we got to do is wait 3 years. That's it. And he'll be gone. And then if a Democrat wins like Gavin Newsom or who knows, Pete Buttigieg, maybe a Mayor Pete couldn't fix a pothole, but now he's got a beard and he rolls up his sleeves so he looks a little bit more manly and a little bit more mature and a little bit more older, but he's still a fool, an absolute fool, then maybe we can go back to doing what we're doing. A lot of these schools did not change. They did not change. Well, a lot of them did was just change their websites. They just changed the terminology on them. So now it's not diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's now inclusion, equity, and diversion, and it's an IED because that's way better than DEI, right? So this is what they're doing because they think they can just stall for time. And that's what they're doing, stalling for time. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because I think this is exactly what they're doing. I think they're just waiting everything out and say there's no way the federal government can get to all of us. What I think they should have done is just gone one by one. So go after. I know you want to cast a wide net. We haven't heard them doing anything in a really, really long time. What about University of Washington, Seattle School District, Fife School, all these other school districts around here were on these lists. Now, University of Washington has been actually trying to fix things on their own. And some other groups have been doing so as well because they don't even want to deal with this mess. But in some cases, they've gotten better, and in some cases, they've gotten worse. So the question is, do you think they're just stalling for time? I think 1,000% that is exactly what they are doing, stalling for time. This one here from Becky in Enumclaw. She says over on the text line, Ari, I just tuned in a few minutes ago and found out it was a squirrel that took KVI off air. I'm so glad. I was worried that something was happening. So glad you guys are still here. Why, thank you, Becky. That's so nice. This one here, no, I do not believe it. Do you mean the squirrel or you mean Ilhan Omar 360? You mean Ilhan Omar. You mean that she just made an accounting error when it came for the millions of dollars that just disappeared. Here from Ted, Ari, Omar is so incompetent. Any congressman worth his or her salt is worth millions after 2 or 3 terms. All that insider information available to her and she's not flush with cash. What's the matter with her? So after 2 radically different disclosures like that, don't you think the IRS, the SEC, the FEC would be interested enough to secure an audit? Just asking. Yeah, Ted's 100% right. Is she really, really bad at her job or really, really good at her job? Or is she just a total liar? Speaking of liars, their documentation showing that the Democrats' plan to tax all of us is now out there and public. It was never a millionaire's tax. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, U.S. is no longer going to be funding worthless college degrees. It's about time. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to win $2,000 in cold, hard cash. That's right, our in-house Pink Floyd cover band is here to set the right mood music for you, for your chance to win this amazing sum of money. Now, all you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Do not text me your phone number. Do not text me your address. Do not text me any other personal information, and only to the number I give you. And then you will be entered for the chance to win $2,000. Today's word is bounty, as in the HMS Bounty, as in what a bounty it would be to win $2,000 in cash. B-O-U-N-T-Y, just like the paper towel. Bounty. Text the word bounty to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. And remember, only text once and do it before 4:30. You're going to need that money, and I'll tell you why you're going to need it. Because it was revealed today that internal documentation between the Democrats shows they always knew it was not going to be a millionaire tax. That from day one, they planned on this being a full-on income tax. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, the man who filed the public disclosure and found out all this information, the one and only investigative journalist for the Center Square, TJ Martinell. Thanks for being with us today, buddy.
All right, glad to be back on again.
So really quick, we don't normally have you on back-to-back this close. I think we just had you on last week. But
I know. I was about to say.
You found this news, so tell us what happened. You filed a public disclosure request for what exactly?
I was just curious what advice, legal advice, the Attorney General's office was giving as to the legality of this tax. And I didn't expect to get anything back because I wasn't sure if it was going to get exempted or redacted or whatever, because some of this stuff, anything dealing with legal advice, or just what was other people saying to them about this. And what I got the other day was this massive batch of records containing communications internally with the Attorney General's office and state lawmakers. And what's crazy is they weren't giving legal advice on whether or not the income tax was legal under current state Supreme Court rulings. What they were giving them counsel on was how to undermine it, how to get it overturned. So I think the key piece is that the millionaire's tax, and this is explicit in the emails, we have them, anybody can view them on our website. The purpose of this millionaire's tax is not to collect revenue to fund certain programs. It's to overturn a century of state Supreme Court rulings that have said that income is property, and because of that, a progressive income tax is illegal. So if it is overturned, that means that everybody, not just millionaires, could be paying this tax, and at any rate, the state legislature determines through a simple majority vote.
So this is fascinating because one of the things I was concerned about is when all these people are filing lawsuits against the income tax, the Democrats essentially wanted those lawsuits filed because if those lawsuits are filed, then they get it before their handpicked Supreme Court and they get the decision they wanted. Does it seem like this was a trap all along? Is that your read of the situation? You think I'm overreacting?
I mean, I've looked at the legal memos that they sent to internally, and something to keep in mind is they probably didn't think that the public was ever going to see these legal memos that they sent to Governor Ferguson and to others. And they said that there is a strong possibility that the state Supreme Court could overturn Colton, but they did acknowledge the problem with that is they're going to have to make a very strong legal case why it should be overturned, because this has been unanimous rulings. And so this would be, if this was overturned, it'd be the most significant decision in the state Supreme Court's entire history in the existence of this state. And so I don't think that they were going to come out and say this is definitely going to happen. I think that they probably were, as lawyers, were smart to choose their words carefully on this. But the fact that they're trying to force the state Supreme Court to make a decision by the way that they crafted this bill just seems really off, because you would think that a lawmaker would send a draft bill to the Attorney General's office and just say, hey, are there any legal issues with this? And what was funny is the attorneys looking at it would say, they said in the emails, we don't see any problem except for this one Supreme Court decision that they want overturned. They want it to be directly addressed. But so it's like, so they even told them, like, get rid of this marriage penalty thing and don't call it an excise tax, because then the state Supreme Court doesn't have to address the issue. Like, they're trying to Senator Jamie Peterson, who was the sponsor of the millionaire's tax bill that got passed, he literally said in an email, I want to force the state Supreme Court to look at this decision again. He wants to make it so that they have to do that, so that they have to once more decide whether income is property, which decades ago the state Supreme Court said it is no longer a question to this court whether income is property.
So they're just trying to get this thing overturned. So, TJ, I'm a little surprised you got this thing, because normally when I file this kind of stuff, and I ask the Attorney General for documents, especially when they're speaking to clients and giving this kind of advice, they never provide it. You think somebody screwed up?
That is going to be the the millionaire's dollar question. Is how did I get? I mean, yeah, because because for people who aren't familiar with the legal community, the Attorney General's office is the attorney for the state legislature, and also when they're discussing legal stuff, that a lot of stuff is exempt under attorney-client privilege, and sometimes they can make mistakes. One of the first stories I ever wrote for the Center Square had to do with internal emails that was accidentally delivered to someone through a public records request. So I just think that there's going to be a lot of questions. This is definitely not going to be a one-time story. There's going to be, I sense, ramifications of this moving forward, but it's also going to be for the state Supreme Court justices, some of whom are brand new. It's now out in the open that they're being forced to address an issue. So, how does that weigh into their decision making, where they, one could say that they could feel like they're being manipulated into having to address something that, I think the other part is when Solicitor General Noah Purcell was advising Senator Pearson on his bill, he said, hey, there's no emergency clause. You could have a referendum run against it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Right. Which is okay. I'm so mad. Today you're just making me more mad, TJ. That's not why we have you on this show. Okay. All right. Let me back up a second here. You've mentioned Jamie Peterson a lot. Pie crust promise Jamie Peterson. Who from the Attorney General's office is on these threads, or Solicitor General? I mean, are we talking Nick Brown's involved in this? Who are we talking about here?
No, Nick Brown was actually not involved with this, which is kind of interesting. It was Noah Purcell, and then there's senior counsel for the Attorney General's office, and then there was a couple of other people who were providing advice. And so it's interesting how everything is very explicitly centered around getting Culleton overturned, which is just interesting, as the Attorney General is also tasked with upholding the state constitution, right? And defending the Constitution of Washington State. And yet they're having conversations about how to get a bill to force the Supreme Court to potentially overturn
the Constitution,
which a century's worth of state Supreme Court justices, including one who's involved in a lawsuit against the millionaire's tax, who's saying that all this stuff. So it's such a strange thing for the Attorney General's office. They're not saying, hey, we're not comfortable with giving you advice on how to overturn a century's worth of legal precedent where the state Supreme Court has said we're not taking up this issue ever again. So, and then there was also the recent Quinn decision that, anyways.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Explain the Quinn decision. This is important stuff for people to know what's going on. Explain it.
Yeah, so they passed a capital gains income tax, and it's an income tax, whether they want to call it, a rose is a rose by any other name. But the reason they got it upheld by the state Supreme Court is they called it an excise tax. But what that also allowed the court to do was avoid taking up the issue of whether income is property. So there were Attorney General's staff who were telling them, do not call the millionaire's tax an excise tax, because that allows the court to avoid taking up this issue. So everything was tailored so that there was nothing legally wrong with this bill except for the one thing they want overturned.
So what is their legal grounds? And what is their justification? And what is their excuse? And what is their definition of property not being, of your income not being your property? This is insane.
I mean, anybody can go, you got to look it up, but there was a 1930s pamphlet that was released, and it's available on the Secretary of State's website, where the pro-argument for this one state constitutional amendment that the entire state Supreme Court decisions are based on, where they're saying we need this amendment so that we can tax income as property at a different rate than land, because you don't tax income at the same rate as land because of different stuff. They wanted to tax the income from stocks and bonds. This was in the 1930s during the Great Depression, when land value was, very low because of everything that was going on, the foreclosures. So literally the pro pamphlet in the voter's guide is saying this amendment, the 14th Amendment, is intended so that we can tax income as property. So I don't understand how they could, which I looked at the legal memos. None of them said address this issue, that this is what the proponents at the time were saying. And so they're trying to go to other states and say, well, other states don't consider income to be property. They don't have the definition that we have in our state, which is property is defined as all things tangible and intangible subject to ownership. And since then, the Supreme Court have said, how can income not be subject to ownership?
Crazy.
Basically what they're saying is you don't own your own income.
Right. So Jamie Peterson trying to make this excuse, the audio clip we've played time and time again of him trying to explain, hang on, I want to make sure I get this right, TJ. You correct me if I'm wrong on this. He said, it's like an illegal immigrant in the United States who's not a citizen, but not illegal. And I'm just like, what the hell are you even talking about, man?
Is that referring, so like kind of like how the millionaire's tax is not illegal, but it's not legal?
Right. Exactly. Like all these members of the Washington State Legislature saying, we swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and Washington. Here we go. Let's vote to violate the Constitution of Washington. And we're going to applaud. We're going to applaud while we do it. Now, this thing must be a bounty, you might say, a boon, you might say, to everybody on the side that's suing against this thing. Have you talked to my attorney, Jackson Maynard, from the Citizen Action Defense Fund, or anybody else about this?
I mean, he did weigh in on it. He didn't have, he didn't see the documents at the time, but he did say it's concerning that the Attorney General's office was participating in this, as opposed to just saying, look, we can't give you legal advice on how to overturn a court ruling. We can give you legal advice on whether or not it's legal. That's it. And the issue, though, is that the Attorney General's office is a partisan office. The Attorney General is an elected official, but he's also, it's a partisan role. And so that's separate from – what's interesting is the Senate has its own legal counsel separate. They don't supersede the Attorney General's office, but they could have gone to the Senate counsel and said, hey, like, how do we craft this bill? They went to the Attorney General's office, and they all just accepted the fact that we're doing this to overturn a Supreme Court ruling. And it's not just some random one. It's not an obscure one. It means that everyone in the state could be subject to an income tax at any rate. That's the problem with saying, oh, it's a millionaire's tax. It's the wealthy can pay their fair share. It's intended to overturn case law that prevents them from passing a progressive income tax on everybody by a simple majority vote, rather than requiring a constitutional amendment in which voters get to weigh in on it. And then you have the Solicitor General suggesting an emergency clause so that the voters don't get a say, at least initially. They got to wait next year for an initiative.
This is too crazy. This can only be something a government cooked up. Now, we're talking with TJ Martinell, who's an investigative journalist for the Center Square, who got these documents showing that Democrats always meant it to be an income tax, never a millionaire tax. So Jamie Peterson looks pretty terrible in these documents that you have that are available up on the centersquare.com. Have you heard back from his office yet?
I reached out to him. I wanted to do a recorded interview to discuss some of the emails. I have not heard anything from him. I've also reached out to the Attorney General's office. I requested a recorded interview with Noah Purcell and a couple of their other legal counsel that was mentioned in the emails to just, allow them to say what they have to say. But what's interesting also, as you mentioned, is Jamie Peterson is an attorney. So there's just going to be ramifications with I have a feeling that they didn't think these emails were ever going to be public, but we'll find out.
Okay. Now, one last question. If you don't want to answer it, it's fine. But
All right.
you and I both know that in our media world, we have friends in the mainstream media. You and I are not considered mainstream media, even though we break more stories than the mainstream media these days. Has anybody, and you don't have to say who they are, has anybody reached out to you for the documents or the PDR or anything else like that because they want to do this story too? Or are they all ignoring it because maybe they're worried about losing access with members of the legislature?
Well, so all the emails that I mentioned in the story are available are available in the story itself as PDFs. So anybody else can go download them, and they can, because the important thing is they can independently verify what we say in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So no, if people think that we misquoted somebody or said something that wasn't true, well, the PDFs are there, so anyone can independently verify it. So they don't have to directly reach out to me for permission, but it's just going to be interesting to see how this story picks up in the coming weeks and what ramifications this might have, because I'm still expected to get more records. This public records request is not done.
Okay, hang on one second. Just while I have you on the line, just before I let you go. Okay, I'm just doing a quick search of all the local news outlets, okay? And I know it takes them longer to get stories out sometimes, but I'm just pulling up everybody's website one at a time. Como, King 5, and Seattle Times. None of them are covering this right now. And I bet you within 24 hours, the ones who are covering this are people like you and me, because the other ones are so petrified of losing access to Bob Ferguson's office. I think at most you might get a Chris Daniels from Como News. Would that be your guess as well?
I mean, I hope that everybody is willing to look into this and, do their own research. But yeah, I just wonder, because I've done a bunch of stories I've talked about with you that were basically picked up by nobody else, and that some critics of mine tried to use that against me, and I just said, well, that just means I'm doing my job, and that's kind of the reflection on others, not myself.
Exactly. I say that all the time. I go, why didn't you do the story? They get mad at me sometimes for doing stories, and I go, you moron should have done the story yourselves. TJ Martinell, investigative journalist for the Center Square. Incredible job. Good on you for doing the story nobody else was able to get. Thank you so much for covering this and blowing a hole in every single lie the Democrats have been telling us for the better part of 6 months now. Appreciate you being part of the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Up next, my friends, the craziness never stops, because now New York is losing millions of dollars because they continue having illegal aliens who can't speak English driving their trucks, and they're not doing anything about it. We'll give you all details of what's happening in Washington when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I know a lot of you are upset that you missed the word at 11 and 1 o'clock because we had that signal outage. Don't worry, the squirrel has been punished. The squirrel has been thoroughly punished by God. And our KVI defense mechanism, which took out the squirrel. That's right. If you missed it earlier, my friends, you know that KVI was offline for a few hours today because something happened out at the transmitter. Here's what it was.
This morning on Talk Radio 570 KVI, something very unfortunate happened. And we know it was something you don't expect from us. This is a public apology after KVI lost transmission capability, taking us off the air. There is an individual to blame, a rogue squirrel on Vashon Island. This squirrel's extremist attempt to cross wires at a transformer eliminated power to our transmitter. That squirrel is no longer alive after suffering a fatal shock. Thank you for your attention.
The squirrel has been punished. You know what I think? It was a homeless squirrel. Didn't have a home. It was stealing the copper wiring from our power cables. That's what it was, right, Kevin?
Someone said that on the text line. They said, "You sure this wasn't a homeless person by the name of Squirrel?"
Yeah, that's what it was. Just try to steal the wiring.
I mean, that's some brutal homelessness out on Vashon, man. If you're out there,
if you're on Vashon and you're homeless,
and you're going to KVI Beach or wherever
to go to our transmitter, to go steal parts of it, that squirrel. The squirrel will not be joining us for the rest of his life. Yes, I think I heard Hans Gruber say that one time.
We saw pictures.
Well, Zach showed me the pictures.
Yeah.
That is a very dead squirrel.
Yes.
But then again, to be real with you, I'm like, you get shocked that badly. I was expecting like some burn marks or something. He just looks dead like any other squirrel. He just looks like roadkill. Anywho, so to make it up to all of you, we have another contest this week, okay? We are giving away four tickets to go to the Bremerton Air Show. The 2026 Bremerton Air Show is taking flight July 11th through 12th at Bremerton National Airport. The show will be a celebration of classic military aircraft and world-class aerobatic performers. Performers include an F-86 Sabre from Planes of Fame Air Museum, P-40 Kitty Hawk from Soaring by the Sea Foundation, an F-6F Hellcat from the Erickson Aircraft Collection, aerobatic legend Rennie Price, and more. This will also be an opportunity to explore aircraft up close on ground display. This includes Soaring by the Sea Foundation's unique PBY Catalina and more. The Bremerton Air Show will have something for everyone of all ages. To find out more about the Bremerton Air Show, please visit bremertonairshow.com if you want your chance to win these fantabulous prizes of four tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. All you have to do is head on over to kvi.com, enter your information, and you might be the lucky winner of 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. And I had a great time out at the Bremerton Air Show last year. Lots and lots of fun. I think last year the theme was Mustang Madness, and there were all these P-51 Mustangs out there. It was pretty awesome. So anywho, it is not to be missed. Coming out to the Bremerton Air Show, and KVI, I believe, will be out there this year as well. We'll get you the details on that. This text here from 253, unhoused squirrel to be snowflake correct. That's very good. The unhoused squirrel. I like that one a lot. So the U.S. Department of Transportation has pulled $73 million from New York State for failing to vet foreign truck drivers. This goes back to August, when we had that illegal alien who was living here in Washington who got a commercial truck driver's license without actually being able to speak English. So he makes an illegal U-turn on a freeway, and an SUV plows into the trailer part of it, killing the people in the SUV. This was followed by incident after incident after incident after incident. And the interesting thing was a lot of them were Hindu/Indian drivers, and a lot of them had the last name Sikh. So something happened this weekend when I was out at the Pacific Institute family event this weekend. Somebody came up to me who's Hindu and said, Ari, you know the problem with this, I mean, aside from all the other problems, of course, is it's giving us a bad name because many of us came here legally. Many of us did all the right things to be here, and now we're getting a bad name. And I said to this person, that's exactly what the truckers tell me. The truckers did everything right to get their licenses, and now these guys are screwing it up, making you think every truck driver is dangerous. Here's what Sean Duffy said about this announcement.
We audited New York in 53% of the licenses, commercial driver's licenses issued to foreigners. 53% were issued illegally, contrary to our rules. And so usually we give states 30 days to come into compliance. We gave New York 4 months to say, hey, what we want you to do is just go back and audit all of these licenses that you've given. And if you've given them contrary to the rules, we'll revoke that license. And in essence, New York said, go pound sand, DOT. And so this is the first step. We said, okay, we're going to pull the $73 million. There's more money that we can pull as we get to the out months. But in the very end, if New York doesn't comply, we can pull their ability to issue commercial driver's licenses. And it's not a New York issue. As you know, commercial drivers don't stay in New York. They drive across the country. And so you have a state with really good rules, say Oklahoma. These drivers from New York drive truck through Oklahoma and every other state. And so they endanger the families that are going to church like on a Sunday morning like today, or they're going to Walmart to shop. We've seen way too many videos of commercial drivers who can't read road signs like you mentioned. But also, we found a whole slew of fake schools. It's kind of like the Learning Center in Minnesota, where you pay them, $1,000 to the school. There's no curriculum. There's no driver. They get a certificate that they passed the school when they don't know anything about commercial driving. By the way, these are 80,000-pound big rigs. And then they get on American roads, and they hurt the American people. There are the countless Americans that want to drive truck. These are great jobs. They support families. And instead, we have illegals or foreigners getting these jobs, and they're hurting the American people. We are not going to tolerate it at DOT. President Trump said no more. And so we were following his lead to do all we can to get states to comply. One other point, Peter. I wish I had the power and control to take those licenses away in the federal government. I don't. We give this right to the states. So I have to work with the states and as a head of DOT federally to get them to comply with us. But I don't have that control. We've given it to governors and state DOTs, and these are the bad decisions that some of them are making.
Yeah, it is. It really, really is. And we saw this happen in Washington. We saw this happen in other states, Illinois, California, Oregon. We've seen how many people dead because of this insanity. Yeah, they should be pulling that money.
I'm just wondering what kind of rules he's talking about. Is he talking about road rules?
I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Kevin. That's very, very good. Yeah, I never thought the reality star would make such a good Secretary of Transportation, but he's actually doing a really... Wait, wasn't his wife on that too? They were on that together?
She was on The Real World, and he was on Road Rules.
Oh, so was it one of those shows where they get everybody together in the crossover?
I think so.
I see. I missed all that. Completely. I missed all of it because I just wasn't interested.
Right.
I was the guy who would watch MTV at night and go, I'm here for the music, not your reality garbage. Give me a little TRL, perhaps. Give me a little Carson Daly. No, I really didn't like TRL, but I knew where it was filmed in Manhattan. You couldn't avoid it. When that thing was at its peak.
That was huge, man.
Oh, my
God.
God.
Huge.
Times Square, when they were filming, you should have seen. I'm like, don't you people have class?
I know.
Don't you people have school? I mean, I was out there because I went to school in Manhattan, and I usually had a reason for being down there. I wasn't there for TRL. One of my favorite restaurants was right near where TRL was.
Bubba Gump Shrimp?
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. That's right. The Jewish guy was going to Bubba Gump Shrimp Company right there in Times Square. That's exactly, you know me so well, Kevin. Very well played. Very, very well played. This one here from Steve. Ari, I'm sure the squirrel was well done on the inside. Yes, probably true. By the way, KVI was not completely offline. I've been listening online for most of the afternoon. Yeah, don't forget, my friends, when the signal, it happens from time to time. If it's not coming from KVI AM, you still have the app. You still have online you can listen to. And if you missed shows today, just go get the podcast. You can catch up on those.
And the thing that no one realizes they have or don't have, HD. We were still available on our HD channel.
There you go. For those of you who don't know what HD is, by the way, in your car, if you have a relatively new car, you might have it. So there's this little HD logo that lights up, which shows you there's minor channels, I want to say, for lack of a better word, on your bigger channel. And you just turn your little dial or push your little button, and guess what? 101.5 -3 on HD-FM. We're there. And it is a crystal clear signal. And you know what? You also do not have to deal with all the bus lines. So when you're driving in Seattle or anywhere else, you don't have to hear the when you're driving, right? None of that. Up next, my friends, we got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. Our friends from Battlefield Addiction will be stopping by to discuss with us this insane tiny home business. Also tell us about how you can help. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I don't think I ever told the story about how I met my friend Art, who's sitting across from me right now. It was right after Seattle is Dying premiered, and I was running for Seattle City Council at the time, and I got a call from Battlefield Addiction. I got a text from Art, I think it was. I think he got my number from Como News or something, and you told me you get it, so many other people don't, about how to solve addiction here in Seattle. And I came out to your facility. I had the best hot chocolate I ever had in my life at your coffee shop that you guys used to run. And I realized the good work that you guys do combating addiction. And you and I and Angie had some really real conversations about how to solve the addiction crisis. Now, Art, before we get too deep into the addiction crisis, you guys have an event coming up, right? Tell us about the event a little bit.
Yeah, May 9th, 7th annual Walk Run for Recovery. All the money is going to supplement sober housing and recovery. So I said supplement because we like people to have skin in the game. We don't like giving away stuff for free. We like people to earn what they get. So a lot of people can't afford, have jobs that aren't paying that high but need to live in sober living, and sometimes they can't afford all of it. So we want to help those guys. We also want to get guys funding and get them 3 months before they have to go to work so they can live with us and do our program and get some help and get on their feet.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest problems. People assume that the second you get out of rehab, you're good to reenter society, and you're just not. There's so many other adjustments that have to be made. Plus, you have to get back to some kind of regular routine, whatever that routine is. And also, there's the, can you make things right with your family? Can you not make things right with your family? And unfortunately, what I saw in Vancouver, where some people would go in for treatment, and they told me, and I went to the encampment they were in, and they told me, well, we go right out of treatment, and we walk right out the door, have nowhere to go, and we walk right into the arms of a drug dealer who starts selling us the stuff, and the cycle starts all over again. What do you think is the thing that turns most people around when they're in an addiction, when they're totally addicted? What's the thing you think that gets through to them the most?
Well, number one, somebody's got to require it of them. Number one, there's got to be someone in their life, whether it's a judge, a family member, a kid, someone who they're doing it for. People always say, got to do it for yourself. I haven't really experienced that. I experienced people doing it for other people, and then some time it takes for themselves, and they get into it. So for us, there's a body of work that people aren't talking about. There's a body of work that goes from sobriety to independence, and that body of work has wraparound services to it. You see, they say in this housing first model, they talk a lot about wraparound services. Well, they're free. Wraparound services are free. We have those. We can take guys to any type of clinic, a Suboxone clinic. We can take them to the DMV. We can take them to a psychiatrist. We can take them and do all that stuff, and it's all free. State insurance pays for all of it. And we have wraparound services, and people do need it. The problem is when someone's on drugs, it's very hard to get them to go to the doctors. It's very hard to get them to go to the DMV. They can't sit still. So you can't do wraparound services when people are on drugs because they won't use the services. So it's not that we don't have the money to do wraparound services. It's that people definitely need it. It's just you can't do it when you're high.
So then a lot of people I talk to, they say that the thing that really got them sober was something really bad happened at home, or they hit rock bottom by going to jail. And yet we have a whole bunch of local officials who say they don't want to do the jail thing anymore, that it's not compassionate, that we need diversion. What would you say to them?
Well, it's not that anyone needs, we talk about accountability. It's not, when we talk about accountability, it's not punishment. People need to stop thinking it's punishment. What accountability is, what we're asking for, is we're saying we want to hold this other human being responsible for their own life. We want to make them accountable to making their own decisions and to make them responsible for their life. We're not saying we want someone put in jail and throw away a key and we're mad at them. Nobody's mad at these guys. Nobody's upset or angry. I've never met no one that hated drug addicts. I haven't met anyone. It's not like that. It's like, no, we want them to be independent human beings. We want more for them than this. So it's a requirement. It's requiring something more of people. And this idea that we can't go to jail or we can't do this, we're not going to arrest our way out of that's true. We arrest our way out of crime. And like I say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you arrest somebody for crimes. It also helps them make that decision to stop. People say, well, they got to hit rock bottom. Okay, but what makes rock bottom? It used to be homelessness in jail. It used to be losing your family. Now all we have is losing your family. But now, even when somebody loses their family, we have some big, it's like, I used to do consultations with families, and they would tell me, we kicked them out of our house, but Aunt Linda took them in.
Yeah.
And now we have to wait for them to get through ruining Aunt Linda's house before we could get them to treatment because Aunt Linda took them in. Well, Seattle is the Aunt Linda. Yeah. That's what it is.
I would argue it's the rich uncle.
Yeah.
Right? It's
rich
the rich
uncle
grandfather
says,
or whatever it is. Right. And here's all the stuff you want. Oh, you want to do drugs? We'll give you a tiny home, or we'll give you an apartment, or we'll give you a hotel room, or we'll give you an RV encampment, or we'll give you whatever it is. And it's all enabling, like Art. You want to see something when you walk out of here today? You take your friends here, right? go over to Seattle Center. Now, the weather's gotten nicer, so they may not be there, but if you go over to Seattle Center, you're going to see a bunch of homeless people inside the Armory where the Starbucks used to be, right? One of our main tourist attractions. They're just sitting there during the day. That's what they're doing. But I'm like, how are you paying for a phone?
Yeah.
How do you have the stuff that you have? Because the city of Seattle is giving it to them.
Well, I brought 2 guys in recovery with me tonight, too, and I hang with guys in recovery, and what we find is that these guys on the streets have been able to get rid of the code that we all lived by. We had a code. Yes, we were all drug addicts, but we didn't do it in front of kids. We didn't do it when kids were around. We didn't have to, we didn't rob and hurt other people. We tried not to. When we did, we felt bad about it. But when we had to, we did it. But still, there was a code. Don't go to the bathroom on the street. Don't smoke drugs in front of kids. Don't ruin a park where there's families that need to come here. There was a code, and they've lost that code. And it's embarrassing to see the drug addicts behave in this way.
In the last few minutes we have with Art Dahlgren from Battlefield Addiction and the great work that they do, I would say the 2 groups I know that do the best amount of work is really We Heart Seattle, you guys. There's a few out in Burien also, you know, the More We Love, things like that. But I can't name any city agency that does a good job. I mean, we were just talking about the tiny home problem. Like, that's going to fix everything, shoving somebody into a tiny home. It's just extending the problem, right?
Well, I think people live in language land around here. Somehow I've been brought into this language world where everything's misdirection. And, you know, to understand, first of all, that you didn't want to offend people, so you took away the word drug addict. But then you don't think that it's denigrating or hurtful to put someone in a tiny home. I think it's pretty offensive that that's all we have for these guys. Here's a little shed that we bought at Home Depot. You can sleep where our lawnmower is, and actually think that the language police. I mean, can't we change the name to something like, you know, a physically challenged home or something?
Vertically challenged
home. Yes. We got to change the name because, you know, who wants to be living in a tiny home? That's really embarrassing, you know. So I don't know. I live in language land where everything seems to be, you know, housing first or you know, for me, what it says is, you know, when they say housing first, Ari, what it means is they're acknowledging it. By saying housing first, you're acknowledging it's not an affordable housing crisis. That's an acknowledgement because you just said first. So you know there's underlying issues. You absolutely know it, but you're lying to us saying you don't know it.
Because all the drug stuff comes right after
Yeah, so
that.
housing first. It means treat the addiction second, doesn't it? It means treat the mental illness second. So you do know it's a mental illness and drug addiction crisis. There is an acknowledgement. You are acknowledging it. So what are we talking about?
I'm stealing that line.
If it wasn't housing first, if it was just housing, then I could say, okay, that's an affordable housing. But I say to the mayor, punt it.
Yeah.
Punt it. Get rid of the football. You're no good at what you're doing. You guys haven't been good at it. We sit here with evidence-based. Please, somebody walk with me and show me some evidence-based stuff. Walk with me and show me evidence-based of it working. Show me. Take me and show me the evidence. Prove it to me.
Yeah.
I will salute you, acknowledge, stand on your programs that you're funding. You won't. You won't stand on them. Almost you'll hire security not to keep the people safe that are in these programs, but to keep the people out from investigating these programs.
Let me give you a better one, okay? If God forbid Katie Wilson's father, mother, uncle, aunt had an addiction issue, would she send them to live in a tiny home?
No. And by the way, if you've ever experienced fentanyl addiction up close, you would never let anyone you love do fentanyl. You would never do it. You would do anything to stop them, and you'd be begging someone to put them in jail. I promise.
Yeah.
So to actually say that you care about someone and let them do fentanyl doesn't work. And it absolutely is fake virtue, if that's what you're going to say, because you cannot care about somebody. If we have somebody that's using fentanyl or relapsed in our program, we put a man on him 24/7 until he's clean. We don't even risk it.
Because you can't.
Because it kills. And so actually, you know, really seeing these people say that they care about people is offensive. And I'm asking, and I'm begging, I'm saying to the mayor, hey, me, Andrea over at We Heart, Christine Moreland, let us take over, please. Punt the football to us and give it to us and let somebody that knows what they're doing. You know, we don't live in language land. We live in the land of actually seeing people get better. So show me that land that you're living in.
Yeah.
Other than it's language land and evidence-based, just telling me my stuff doesn't work. Well, I'm standing here with 2 guys that it worked for. You produced 2 people. I'll be proud of you.
Exactly.
But you can't.
Yeah.
So produce something or punt the football to us. We're ready to take the ball and run with it.
I completely agree. And just the other day, I reached out to you because, and I've This is entirely on me for not following up because I've just been doing other things. But you guys now have a landscaping company. You have all these other things you do to keep these guys employed. I look forward to having you guys out of my house because it really needs the work. I've gotten super lazy and I have a black thumb, so I kill everything anyway. So hopefully you guys can turn that around. But you guys have the run. Give us the details for the run one more time.
May 9th, 9 a.m., Rogner Park in Auburn. Please come down. There's booze. KVI is actually going to be there. Hank Radio will be there. There is food. There's coffee. There's and all the money going right to what we need it to get these guys that are working their ass off and trying really hard to do good.
Give us your website one more time.
Battlefield.com.
Battlefield.com.
Battlefielladdiction.com.
Battlefield Addiction.
And Battlefield on Facebook. We're big on Facebook.
Awesome. Art Dahlgren from Battlefield Addiction. Thank you for your great work. Thank you so much for being with us today, my man. Really do appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Thanks,
If we had to be evaluated on the practical skills we get out of our college educations, how many of these majors would nobody ever give you a student loan for? Let's take young Ari Hoffman for a minute. Originally, I started going to business school, was doing the business school thing, but then wanted to graduate a little bit earlier, so I switched my major over to speech and drama. Yeah, I actually did that, out of business school to speech and drama. Now, mind you, the business school it is, and I learned some lessons from business school, but to be honest with you, neither one of them was especially great. Really, neither one of them was. I had more fun in the speech and drama stuff and sped up my graduation, but I still didn't graduate. I'm still a credit and a half short. Luckily, my parents were kind enough to pay for college. But how many people out there major in underwater basket weaving? How many people out there major in lesbian dance theory or whatever else it is with no practical skills? We have kids these days graduating college with no skills whatsoever, with a mountain of student debt. It's an absolute scam. An absolute scam. Now the Department of Education, using the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, is restricting loans for university programs in which graduates of those programs do not earn as much as high school graduates. The DOE writes if the typical graduate of an undergraduate program does not earn as much as a high school graduate, the program will no longer be eligible for federal student loans. Nor should it be. Nor should it be. The amount of money, the amount of debt these kids accumulate is absolutely insane for no reason, with no practical skills. And then they're working at Starbucks or some other restaurant when they get out of college. And they said, wait, where's my corner office? The biggest scam we ever had was stop working with your hands and go to college. You'll have a better life. You want to be a doctor? You want to be a lawyer? You want to be an accountant? Sure, okay. But anything else, the amount of kids who are better at working with their hands, who could have had very profitable companies as mechanics or electricians or plumbers, when did we decide that was something to look down upon? That's a real shame with our society right now. When we come back, my friends, we'll give you the details on everything that's going on with the Hormuz Strait. Are your gas prices actually going to go down? We'll tell you what's up when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Plus, is Washington the laughing stock of the entire United States? A new op-ed says so. But before we get to any of that, some of you are just joining us because you just got in your car heading home. And some of you were trying to listen to us this morning, but you ran into some technical difficulties. And we had lots of people texting the show. My mom this morning got the auto alert from KVI. And she said, Ari, I see the KVI's down. Was it Russian hackers again? I'm like, no, Mom, I don't think it was Russian hackers. I would know about that one by now. I don't think it's Russian hackers. I had other people saying, Ari, KVI's down. Did Antifa attack the transmitter? No, it wasn't Antifa attacking the transmitter. However, there was somebody who was responsible for what happened. So we have a formal apology for everybody. For those of you who missed what happened earlier.
This morning on Talk Radio 570 KVI, something very unfortunate happened. And we know it was something you don't expect from us. This is a public apology after KVI lost transmission capability, taking us off the air. There is an individual to blame, a rogue squirrel on Vashon Island. This squirrel's extremist attempt to cross wires at a transformer eliminated power to our transmitter. That squirrel is no longer alive after suffering a fatal shock. Thank you for your attention.
So I think you could really say it was an unsheltered neighbor, right? It was one of those, right? Oh, come on. Yeah, no, Kevin's shaking his head. That was funny. A non-domiciled neighbor. Okay, we'll go with that one instead, right? Yes, no, maybe so.
Squirrels are very, they have nice homes, I think.
In trees, perhaps, so they're just like the homeless people here in Seattle.
They're not unsheltered, right? I've seen, I've seen
the
cartoons.
homeless people aren't unsheltered either. They got those tents from REI that the activists or whoever get. They got the tiny homes. They're fine. Meanwhile, switching gears over here for a minute, a lot of you have been asking, Ari, I don't really understand what's going on with the Hormuz Strait right now. I don't really understand what's going on in Iran. I thought we had a ceasefire. Why don't we have a ceasefire? Well, you're dealing with a genocidal death cult in the Iranian Ayatollah's regime. And you also have a split in power. So in Iran, you have the Iranian government, and there's not many of them left because a lot of them have been assassinated, rightfully so. They were horrible people who did awful things to their own population. On the other hand, you have the IRGC. They're the military wing. They also do the religious police. They also shut down protesters. They also do nuclear enrichment, you name it. So let's say the government says, hey, let's make it nice. Well, then comes the IRGC, who are basically just a terrorist organization, going, I don't want to make nice. Death to the infidel. So then all of a sudden the government goes, yeah, death to the infidel, because they don't have to just be worried about being taken out by us. They have to worry about being taken out by their own military. Now, I don't want to paint a rosy picture like their government is being held hostage by the IRGC, because that just wouldn't be true, because they are just as bad as one another. They all are. So what happened was on Friday, you had a ceasefire. And on Friday, you had the Hormuz Strait going open, and you had gas prices coming down. Everything looked like it was heading in the right direction. But unfortunately, you're dealing with a death cult. So somebody got a little itchy and said, death to the infidel. And guess what? They started shooting at ships that were going through the Hormuz Strait. And they started trying to run the blockade. So, according to President Trump, today an Iranian flag cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long, weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade. It did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman. Yeah, soon that's going to be Gulf of America, too, and gave them fair warning to stop. Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Yes! This is fun. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and we are seeing what's on board. President Donald J. Trump. Now, the problem is this isn't good for oil markets. The other problem is this isn't good for international traffic. Hey, I got an idea. NATO. After all this was wrapped up on Friday, NATO said, hey, we want to come and help. All right, NATO, here's your chance. Here's your chance, NATO. You guys want to come help? We're happy to have England, the UK. We're happy to have everybody else come down. Hey, are your ships coming down now, guys? Oh, they're nowhere to be found. No, they just want to come down when it's nice and safe, right? I forgot the only gear on a French boat is reverse. So now they're all saying, oh, no, look what President Trump did. Okay, you're dealing with a genocidal death cult in the Iranians. They don't follow logic. This was one of my concerns. Their government has been almost completely destroyed, so you've got a few options now. If you keep the blockade in place, Iran's economy completely collapses, and basically the rial, which is their dollar, is worth nothing right now. They can't import anything. They can't export anything, and you starve them out. The only other thing you could do is take Kharg Island, and I don't think President Trump wants to do that right now because then it's boots on the ground, and I don't think he wants to deal with that. But also, I'm not sure necessarily that should be our job. I say you call up Saudi Arabia, you call up the Emirates, you call up Qatar, you call up a whole bunch of these guys and say, all right, guys, you want the island, you want the oil, go take it. Go take it. We'll give you air support. We'll do whatever you want. Go get it. It's yours. Let's cut a deal for how this is going to work out so America gets a cut because we did all the stuff. You're going to pay us back for this war. Let's work this out. That would make a little bit of sense. The reordering of all the Arab countries and Israel is incredible what has happened right now. All the Gulf states are on the side of America. Europe is not because all the Gulf states recognize the threat that Iran was. You want to know how death culty the Iranians are? Okay, so the U.S. and Israel bomb you. I get that you're mad. I get that you're upset. What do you do in retaliation? You don't blow up the U.S. You don't well, you do shoot a few things at Israel. Instead, you fire on every other Arab country just because they have U.S. military bases? Now you have drawn all of them into the fight because they want the fight. They want to go meet their 72 Virginians or their 72 Sturgeons or whatever it is. They want the fight, which is why you can't negotiate with people like this. They only understand one thing, which is strength. They think they can outlast President Trump because they know they got midterm elections coming up. And they know that there's a presidential election just 3 years from now. 3 years is a very short amount of time in the long run. I do love that the Democrats, war of choice. When would you have liked us to go to war? When a nuke is, God forbid, detonated in New York? When would you have liked us to go to war? When would you have chosen to go to war? You're right. It was a war of choice. We had the choice to do something about a genocidal death cult that said death to America, death to the infidel, death to Israel, and we're going to keep developing nuclear weapons, and we're going to close our little strait anytime we feel like it. Yeah, we had a choice whether to fight them or not. I mean, I guess there was option C, which Barack Obama and Joe Biden chose, which was let's give them tons of money. Let's give them lots of money and see what happens. We'll just give them all the money in the world. Let's just do that. Billions of dollars, you want it? No problem. Dollar bills, dollar bills, dollar bills, dollar bills. No, yeah, we could have chosen door number 3. Would have been stupid. Was especially stupid to give the number one state sponsor of terror more money to sponsor terror, you lunatics. I love this other lie that the left has been saying. We got pulled into the war because of Israel. Really? Because of Israel? Laughing, cackling hyena Kamala Harris was back the other day. Here's what she said.
He entered a war, got pulled into it by Bibi Netanyahu. Let's be clear about that. Entered a war that the American people do not want, putting at risk American service members.
Oh, now you care about the military. Slava Ukraine, you didn't seem to care that much. Afghanistan, you didn't seem to care that much. Now all of a sudden you care about that? I remember when Kamala Harris spoke here in Seattle, she was on her book tour. So I went undercover as Ira, the intellectual, that's R-E backwards. I went undercover. Some of the activists kind of like their heads did a double take with me. Like, is that who I think it is? Nope. Can't tell me. I'm like Clark Kent and Superman, right? Glasses. Lois Lane will never know the difference. Put on some glasses, put on a hipster hat, put on a scarf. They'll never know it's me. I went in there, and every few minutes, protesters kept popping up. Anti-Israel protesters kept popping up out of nowhere. And I said, I don't really know what they're protesting. She shares their view. What are they mad about exactly? She agrees with them. And she just said it out loud. No, America did not get pulled into war by Israel. Donald Trump wrote this in response. Israel never talked me into a war with Iran. The results of October 7th added to a lifelong opinion that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. He literally has been saying this for 40 years. How many times do we have to play for you all the different clips he said in the 1980s about this? I watch and read the fake news pundits and polls in total disbelief. 90% of what they say are lies and made-up stories, and polls are rigged, much as the 2020 presidential election was rigged. Just like the results in Venezuela, when the media doesn't like talking about it, the results in Iran will be amazing. And if Iran's new leaders, regime change, are smart, Iran can have a great and prosperous future. President Donald J. Trump. He's 100% right about that, which is, no, we didn't get pulled into this war. How many U.S. service members have been killed by Iran that Kamala Harris didn't seem to give two you-know-whats about? She didn't care at all that over 1,000 Americans, mostly U.S. service members, have been killed by the Ayatollah's regime over the last 47 years, most notably the U.S. Marine barracks. She doesn't care about that at all. Doesn't care about that at all. She didn't care about October 7th, even though her husband's Jewish and her crazy stepdaughter might be. We don't claim her. We don't want either one of them. Keep them. So she's saying, didn't care about service members? You didn't care about service members at all. At all, at all, at all. The nonsense that they're trying to spin this is crazy. Other lie, they say. Well, what's President Trump doing? He's just trying to get a deal. Barack Obama had a deal, and that was keeping us safe. If it was keeping us safe, and they weren't supposed to be developing nuclear weapons, why were they still enriching uranium? Why was Fordo still in existence if they weren't developing nuclear weapons? President Trump said this: the deal that we are making with Iran will be far better than the JCPOA, that's the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, penned by Barack Hussein Obama and sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst deals ever made, having to do with security of our country. It was a guaranteed road to a nuclear weapon, which will not and cannot happen with the deal we're working on. They actually gave $1.7 billion in green cash, loaded onto a Boeing 757, and flown to Iran for Iranian leadership to spend any way they saw fit. He emptied out all the cash from banks in D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. Those bankers said they'd never seen anything like it before. In addition, hundreds of billions of dollars was paid to Iran. If I did not terminate that deal, nuclear weapons would have been used on Israel and all over the Middle East, including our cherished U.S. military bases. The fake news, like the lightweight Washington Post journalist David Ignatius, loved to talk about the JCPOA, knowing that it was dangerous and complete embarrassment to our country. If a deal happens under Trump, it will guarantee peace, security, and safety, not only for Israel and the Middle East, but for Europe, America, and everywhere else. It will be something that the entire world will be proud of instead of the years of embarrassment and humiliation that we would have been forced to suffer due to incompetent and cowardly leadership. President Donald J. Trump, he is, again, 100% correct. You want me to prove it? Bill Clinton made a terrible deal just like that. You know what it was doing? Hey, North Korea, we'll give you money, but can you not develop nuclear weapons? What does North Korea have right now? You want to end up like that? You want to end up like a hermit state with nuclear weapons? Is that really the road you want to go down? Is that what you want to do? So who are we actually negotiating with? We can't negotiate with the government because they got the IRGC. We can't negotiate with the IRGC because they're a bunch of terrorists. Here's what U.S. Ambassador Mike Waltz said.
Well, the Iranian command and control and government is in absolute disarray because of the devastating attacks across its leadership. You're right. You heard the Iranian foreign minister say it's open, and then the IRGC step in and say, no, it's closed. Regardless, it's the blockade, the U.S. Navy, and President Trump who's ultimately deciding what gets in and out. So he has completely turned the tables on Iran's attempt to hold the entire world's economies hostage, on its attempt to punish the world as a result of this dispute over its nuclear program. But to your point, I promise you, I assure you, the United States doesn't trust anything. Any agreement that comes out will have to be verifiable and enforceable. And back to my position here in the United Nations, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, and its nuclear inspectors, I'm confident will be a key part of whatever's resolved.
They have to be. They have to be. Otherwise, we don't know whether or not they're keeping their end of the deal. Do we have nuclear inspectors in North Korea? No, of course not. Now, mind you, some Democrats are so desperate to stay in power. Somebody like Adam Smith from here in Washington. I've supported Adam Smith before, but I'm starting to lose faith in him. He is so desperate not to lose to Marxist Shama Sawant that what he's doing is he's saying things that are like her position. The craziest thing I've ever heard him say is what he said earlier today, where he basically said that he trusts the Ayatollah's regime and the IRGC in Iran more than he trusts what comes out of the White House.
I would think it quite likely that Iran will not show up and negotiate, because what they've said about where negotiations are at has turned out to be a lot closer to the truth than anything coming out of the White House.
So you believe Iran over the White House?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. I would put it exactly the way I just put it.
Which is you believe Iran over the White House. So that's supposed to be the moderate wing of the Democrat Party. Here's Ro Khanna, the dude on the squad, talking to Fox News, the far left of the Democrat Party.
Are you suggesting that Obama's leadership on Iran was better? Because under President Obama, there were 14 wire transfers to a... Hold on. There were 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. That was a total of $1.7 billion. The same $1.7 billion he told Congress was frozen Iranian assets. Now, there was a back channel to Tehran through Valerie Jarrett, active for 2012 to 2024. This was after he left office. So, you know, it was almost like a shadow government. He also sent pellets of cash in a plane to Iran. Now, why would you send money to Iran knowing that they are building a nuclear weapon and they are the leading sponsor of terrorism?
Barack Obama was a great statesman who left America much safer. I wouldn't put Donald Trump in the same paragraph.
What a fool. What an absolute fool. The Middle East became such a mess under this guy because he used your tax dollars to fund terrorism. It was beyond crazy what he did. But that's the left. That's the moderate left and the far left agreeing with each other. That's what they're doing. They're agreeing with each other. Beyond crazy. You've completely lost the left. I think the left is more in favor of the IRGC and the Ayatollah than they are of America. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Neil in Marysville. Neil, what's going on?
Yeah, I just, wow, there's so much. Some numbers. The liberals keep comparing things that Trump says to the Iranians. And so, okay, which Iranians? There are the remnants of three different governments in Iran right now. There's the basic government, president, parliament, etc. But you also have had, for 47 years, the Ayatollah, the Grand Ayatollah, and the Guidance Council consisting of about 50 Shia mullahs who will tell the electorate, will tell the voters if they have voted correctly or not. And if they have voted incorrectly, they will install somebody else for the president. So you have the government and then the shadow government. And then you have the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which started out as a fairly small paramilitary organization, bunch of thugs that they used to control dissidents and whatnot. And it grew into a parallel armed force. So you have the regular Artesh forces, you have an Army, a Navy, an Air Force. And then you have the IRGC, and then eventually IRGC-N grew up, IRGC Navy, and IRGC Aerospace Force, which were created because the mullahs didn't really trust the regular forces.
I got you, Neil, but now a whole bunch of their government is gone. A whole bunch of the heads of the IRGC is gone. The Navy is gone. The Air Force is gone. So now you're left with the remnants, just like you said at the very beginning of what you were talking about, of all those things. And I don't even know who you can make a deal with. I think you have to make a deal with a new government, but I don't think the people of Iran have risen up yet to make said new government. So I don't know who you're making these deals with. And this is something I've actually said from the beginning. is who are we actually making these deals with? I got 10 more seconds that I got to run.
Okay, well, I would say don't make any deal. We wouldn't have dealt with Hitler if he had suddenly grown a brain.
That's what I say too.
1945.
And I'll tell you, a whole bunch of people on the text line say, finish the job and then deal with it afterwards. Why are we making deals with these guys? And you know as well as I do, Neil, that oftentimes a lot of these deals or ceasefires are made so we can redeploy for a better position in the next phase. And I believe that's exactly what's going on right now. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, Barack Obama's deal was a fraud. The deal with North Korea ended badly. But right now, a whole bunch of people on Capitol Hill are finally looking into the fraud here in Washington State and elsewhere. And Turd Ferguson just basically advertised what's going on here. We'll tell you what we found when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we are having another giveaway over on our website. That's right. It is your chance to win four tickets to the Bremerton Air Show, but you can only enter to win over at kvi.com. The Bremerton Air Show is going to be July 11th through 12th at the Bremerton National Airport. And I believe KVI is going to have a booth out there again this year, along with our sister stations, Hank 101.5 FM and Northwest News Radio. To see all the details about the air show, visit bremertonairshow.com. To sign up to try and win the tickets, head on over to kvi.com. Well, meanwhile, some news with our Governor, Bob Ferguson.
All right, Turd Ferguson.
Turd Ferguson. So he did something really shady last week. So he posts this over on social media. He writes, as a parent, I know how critical high-quality child care and early learning opportunities are for working families in Washington. Today, I announced $56 million in grants to fund new facilities and renovations statewide. 74 early learning center providers, 40 cities, 17 counties, 2,056 new child care spaces. Now, you're announcing more money into a system that is ripe for fraud, where there's been millions of dollars of allegations in fraud and $1.3 billion in unaudible expenses. And you think it's a good idea to put more money into this? You know what this is? This is a giant middle finger to all of us. This is you want to go after the daycares? I'm going to give them even more money. That's literally what he did. And then he writes this, just to screw you a little bit more, everybody. I insisted that the millionaire's tax, a.k.a. the income tax, provides significant tax relief for working families, including additional support for early learning. Thanks to the generosity of the Ballmer Group, we're on track to provide early learning to thousands of kids over the next decade. Does Ballmer even live here anymore? Maybe he still has a house here. Oh, no, he doesn't have a basketball team here anymore. That's what I know that for sure. So I'm just kind of wondering what exactly this money is going to. So if you go over on Turd Ferguson's website, he's got a list of all the facilities that are getting a grant off this, all the facilities. Now, our friend, Kristen Mag, who's a citizen journalist just like you, sends us tips just like you. She just went over and read the list. And you know what she found? She found this little thing here. Some of these facilities have names. Sure they do. But then a whole bunch just say family home facility. Family home facility. One in Seattle. One in Federal Way. Another in Federal Way. Another in Federal Way. Another in Sammamish. One in Federal Way. One in Kent. One in Sammamish. One in Federal Way. One in Tukwila. They all say family home facility, and they don't say the name of the school. They don't say who's getting the money. Well, that's not very transparent. And they have a little asterisk that say they are intentionally hiding this information for safety. No, what you're hiding it from is people like me. Because you don't want us showing that more of your buddies are probably fraudulently taking our tax dollars. So I filed a public disclosure request. I filed a public disclosure request for the names, addresses, and information on every single one of these daycares. Because how much do you want to bet that some of these facilities we've already outed as fraudulent or allegedly fraudulent? I bet you it's a lot of it. A lot of it. Now, Secretary Bargum was actually testifying on Capitol Hill today about the fraud that they're fighting in his Department of the Interior. Give a listen.
Look at some components of the Fish and Wildlife Service are proposed for complete elimination. That includes the state and tribal wildlife grants. Is that wrong?
There was a review done of the grants on the grant side, and that is an area where there's been substantial review. We found organizations that were receiving grants from Interior where 80 to 100% of the revenue of that NGO was a grant from the federal government. And yet those organizations, we were the sole source of their revenue, but they would have a CEO making $650,000 and $400,000 lobbyists.
Let me just...
Wait, we got to cut you off. Oh, wait, you just called out the lobbyists. Right, you're not actually funding the organization. You're funding those high salaries. I thought Democrats hated high salaries. Lance writes over on the text line, come on, Ari. They are called early learning centers. Let's work on getting that right. You know what, Lance? You're 100% right. John in Auburn writes, Ari, is there any better mascot than a jackass to describe the Democrat Party? No, I just don't think there is. I really, really don't. When we come back, is Washington State the most embarrassing state in the nation? A new article says yes. We're going to tell you the reasons why. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Is Washington State the most embarrassing state in the nation? I would say yes. And our next guest actually wrote a column saying that exact thing. Joining us now from the Washington Policy Center, their Vice President of Research, the one and only Todd Myers. Thanks so much for being with us today, buddy.
Always nice to chat with you.
Okay, I feel this every single day. So why did you decide to write this column now?
Well, one thing is that I see this every day because I work in policy, and I see lots of examples of things that government does that don't make the news or are not, widely recognized. And it bothers me. And I realize how badly run Washington State is in a way that people who have, lives, unlike you and I, don't see. And so I thought I would write something just giving a number of examples of what I saw as the most embarrassing mistakes. And like every state makes policy errors and does dumb things for policy. But Washington State seems to have a way to do things where government, either malfeasance or incompetence or dishonesty, go beyond just sort of bad policy. So I thought I would write a piece, and it seems to have struck a chord with people not just in Washington but across the country.
So what's the thing that did it for you? Because I know, here's the thing that made me run for office. Here's the thing that made me become a radio host. What's the straw that broke the camel's back where you said, okay, this policy is too insane, I'm writing the article?
Well, again, it wasn't a policy so much. I'll tell you the thing that I just thought was sort of so ridiculous that and so the first example that I gave in my piece was the Department of Licensing helpline, which they were going to put in several languages. And so they did it. They rolled it out. And if you pressed number 2 for Spanish, instead of it being Spanish, it was English with a thick, like Mexican or Spanish accent. It sounded sort of like Gloria from, Modern Family. And I was just like, this is so insane. One, just because it's hilarious. And second, they obviously didn't even test it. The Department of Licensing rolled the system out, and nobody ever actually pressed 2 on their system to see if it worked before they rolled it out to the public. And so what's interesting is that there was a story about this, and there's a video that goes along with it that people can look at, and it's just hilarious. But the woman who was interviewed, who did the video, said that it happened, and then she sort of brushed it off because she also spoke English. But then she checked it months later, and it was still that way. And that, I think, is not only embarrassing because of how ridiculous it is to have, press 2 for Spanish and get English with a Spanish accent, but second, that the Department of Licensing never, ever thought to actually check to see if the system worked.
So par for the course around here. And usually we have you on for all the policy stuff. We have you on for the mathematics. Are they meeting their climate goals? What's going on with the gas tax? But the simple things around here aren't getting done. So why do we think that these fools can do math? I mean, it's every single thing they get wrong, and they keep finding new ways to get it wrong.
Well, and that's one point that I have made numerous times is that they can't do stories like this where the Department of Licensing just makes a ridiculous basic error. But then those same people were like, look, we know how to manage the economy.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't even do the basic things. You certainly can't manage the economy. The other thing, I pointed out several things, but another one is just sort of the breezy dishonesty that politicians have in Washington State. And the example that I gave, which we are all familiar with, but other people aren't in the country, is, Senator Jamie Peterson being asked why he voted to ban income taxes, and then literally 2 years later was the sponsor of an income tax. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, that was, what did Mary Poppins say? A pie crust promise, easily made, easily broken. Mm-hmm. And in other words, so the example that in my piece, I said that's sort of like Otter's advice to Flounder in Animal House, which is, face it, you effed up, you trusted him. Right. And what's so remarkable is how breezy, how just sort of, casually dishonest these folks are. And they feel no shame whatsoever. And so, those are the sorts of things that put Washington beyond just sort of everyday bad policy. It goes to just incompetence and the fact that we don't really care that we're incompetent.
Yeah, and you look at incompetence, starts right at the top. You look at somebody like Seattle Mayor, I almost said Jenny Durkan, Katie Wilson. You talk about Jenny Durkan, too, in your article. But Katie Wilson, who had no experience in any job. Now, you want to say somebody doesn't have experience in politics is not necessarily a bad thing. But you want to say no experience in any job whatsoever, living off her parents, not getting help from her parents, living off her parents while her unemployed husband stays home and they're still trying to put the kid in daycare. And now we put this person in charge of our city, and this is the person who's going to fix all our programs? I mean, people are nuts.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I always liked, because she, and I don't understand this, but she used to write for Crosscut. Now, why Crosscut decided to give her a regular column, I don't know. But, these are the sorts of decisions that the media makes in Washington State. But her title, right, the quote unquote job she had was running what's called the Transit Riders Union, an organization that she made up. And she gave herself the title of General Secretary.
Yeah.
Now, there is only one organization in history that calls the top person General Secretary, and that's the Communist Party. And I teased her. I mocked her about it one time on Twitter before she was mayor. And somebody said, "Oh my God, he's attacking you for calling it General Secretary." And she said, "Well, that's because it has sort of a commie feel." And then she said, "But that's how we roll." Well, exactly. That is exactly my point. And she has since come out and said, "I'm a Marxist." So it's like we find ways to take the normal embarrassment of politics and turn it to the next level.
Yeah, my favorite moment, which you actually call out in the article as well, and I don't want to give away the whole thing because people should definitely go read this article, Is Washington the Most Embarrassing State in the Nation?, which is published over in the Dispatch by our friend Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center. Jenny Durkin going on Chris Cuomo's show back when he had one on CNN, when armed Antifa and BLM activists took over 6 blocks of the city, rapes, robberies, and murders went up 250%. People died. They do it in the name of social justice, and only black kids were being shot. And she calls it the Summer of Love, a street fair, a block party, blatantly lying to your face about what's going on, that even Chris Cuomo, if you watch his reaction, he jolts back in his chair, his eyes pop out of his head. Like, did she really just say that? And it destroyed her political career, but that's the lie she thought she could get away with telling.
Well, and what's incredible about that also is that if you remember, Jenny Durkin she was supposed to be the sort of the rational candidate. She was much more mainstream Democrat. She had been the U.S. attorney for Western Washington, and she was supposed to be sort of the adult in the room who was going to come in and calm everything down. And yet she delivers one of the most obviously ridiculous statements. If right-wing domestic terrorists had taken over 6 blocks of Seattle, she would not have called it a summer of love, right? I mean, we know what the comments would have been, but the fact that that happens and the folks are on the left, and she is deluded enough to think that it's just, sort of happiness and sunshine. I mean, that just shows, again, this is a person who is supposed to be the adult in the room, who is supposed to be rational, has a good history of being a sort of a normal politician. And even she is somehow, warped and deranged by Seattle politics.
Absolutely crazy. The column is Washington the Most Embarrassing State in the Nation? It's by our friend Todd Myers, Vice President of Research over at the Washington Policy Center. You can find the article over at thedispatch.com. I recommend you check it out. You will laugh, you will cry, and you will realize that, yes, Washington is the most embarrassing state in the nation. Todd Myers, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Always nice to chat with you.
Always a pleasure. On that happy note, only good news to wrap up the show. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I don't think we got the chance to talk about the Oklahoma high school principal last week who was shot while tackling a gunman on campus. Did you see that insane video where he literally takes down the shooter after being crazy stuff? Crazy, crazy stuff. Well, now we got some good news. According to the Post Millennial, the Oklahoma high school principal who was shot while tackling a gunman on campus was honored by students as prom king during the school's prom night. Kirk Moore, principal of Pauls Valley High School, received a tribute during the school's prom last Friday. Moore, who was injured earlier this month while confronting an armed former student, was greeted with applause as the DJ introduced him as our king and played the song Hero by Nickelback. What, you didn't want to do the Spider-Man one? And a hero can say... Wait, was that the one they're talking about? Or are they talking about the one... There goes my hero, watch it. You know, they all sound the same, all these 90s, early 2000s hero songs.
What about... And a hero comes along.
Oh, yeah, some Mariah. That's more fitting for the prom, right? Yeah.
I know everyone's fooled that I actually just played the Mariah song. Is that Mariah? Is that who that is?
That's Mariah.
There's
that
so
is
many
Mariah.
hero songs.
Lots of those. Yeah, actually, I think that was the Spider-Man song they played from. That was Nickelback and Chad Kroger's the guy from... No, it was him and that other dude who were like, who's this other dude? He's from some other band. And they did the Spider-Man song for the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Well, I know what song you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Is it? Are we sure it's just not Chad on his own?
It's Chad on his own. Right. It's not... See, they threw me off by writing Nickelback.
Yeah.
It's Chad on his own with that other dude who looks like he came out of a goth band. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know, man.
You never saw the video? There's
No,
Spider-Man, and there's these two dudes singing, and then there's a Green Goblin.
I saw the movie. I know the song. I know
Yeah.
it's one of the Nickelback guys. That's all I need to know. I stay
yeah.
far away from it. Far away from it.
You're fine. Students surrounded him, cheering, jumping in celebration, placed a king's hat on his head. The recognition comes after Moore was captured on surveillance footage charging a 20-year-old Victor Lee Hawkins who had entered the school with 2 pistols. Hawkins entered the school lobby earlier this month, pointing a pistol at a student before Moore rushed in to intervene. As Hawkins turned the weapon on him, Moore tackled the suspect but was shot in the leg during the struggle. Another staff member assisted in restraining Hawkins until police arrived and took him into custody. Not to bash on the victims a little bit here, but you realize all the things here that could have prevented this until police arrived. Walked into a school with 2 pistols. Maybe you guys need to rethink, I don't know, locking the doors and having security. It was dumb luck the principal was nearby when that happened. According to KFOR, court documents revealed that Hawkins told police he didn't like Principal Moore, and he said he went to the school to kill him. Hawkins was reportedly inspired by the Columbine shooters and intended to carry out a similar attack. That's horrifying. You guys remember when Columbine happened? It was 1999. It seems like it was yesterday. That was my senior year of high school. I remember that. Moore was hospitalized following the shooting, but has since recovered. Officials credit his actions, staving off a far more serious outcome. Quote, the actions of the staff and principal stepping in as soon as they did was just like... as soon as they saw a subject of a firearm save lives today, said Hunter Mackey, the Oklahoma State Board of Investigation, soon after the incident. That's just huge news. That really, really is. I mean, the prom king thing is very, very cute and very, very sweet, but you always wonder what you would do when you're physically threatened. And some people freeze up, and some people do what's got to get done, and this principal did what had to be done. Meanwhile, this one here, bad news for Krispy Kreme, good news for me. I have been obsessed with the fact that Krispy Kreme is no longer kosher. I am furious over the fact that Krispy Kreme is no longer kosher. And it's not just our Krispy Kreme here in Washington. It is the entire U.S. I have reached out to Krispy Kreme for comment. I have reached out to ask them why they are no longer kosher. Are they creating a bacon donut or something? Because then I understand. But just out of nowhere, I'm kind of wondering why out of nowhere you drop all your franchises from kosher certification because it is the best donut in the planet. I've become weirdly obsessed with this. In fact, people know how much I love Krispy Kreme donuts, that when they found out they lost kosher certification, my phone blew up. My friends, my relatives, my former students, are you okay? Are you all right? Like a relative died. They know that Krispy Kreme ran through my veins. And I will find out what's going on. In fact, I put one of the kosher food bloggers on the case to find out exactly what's going on because they're not getting back to me. So they will continue to be punished by God Almighty himself for this travesty.
How expensive is it to get something like that certified?
It depends on a lot of stuff. Basically, like, do you need the rabbi there all the time? Do you not need the rabbi there all the time? Does he need to come in the morning? Is it just an ingredient thing? Is it back in the factory in wherever land where you get the mix from?
I think we got our answer. And it's not like I don't think Krispy Kreme is doing as well as they used to. So I think they probably are cutting some costs.
Here's what I think it is.
That's just a guess by me.
You're not wrong because the one here, it's not like they're doing banger volume on the Jewish business, but they dumped the one in Lakewood, New Jersey, which like everybody in Lakewood, New Jersey, that's like all Jews. And you got rid of the certification there. That don't make much sense. So Krispy Kreme data breach has a class action settlement. Do you think that when you need to be paying class action settlements, now you don't have money for things like, kosher certification, other things. But I'm happy you need to pay the settlement because you should be punished for the fact that you are no longer kosher. I've ruined my tasty treats for life. That's going to do it for us today. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be in a better mood with lots more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.